Hey, what's going on, everybody? Back with another episode of reviewing series or movies. Today we're going to be reviewing the series Death Note. Death Note, the series from 2006, is a Japanese anime series, and this is my second time watching anime. I mean, besides Yu-Gi-Oh and like Pokemon as a kid. Um, the first time I watched it was Shingeki, Attack on Titan, and I really enjoyed that series. But I think Death Note takes the first place right now for me. Death Note, I mean, Attack on Titan is good too. I'm not gonna say it's not. But for me personally, Death Note, I think from the first episode, I mean, if you're not into anime or anything, I recommend you give this show a try. It's not that long of a series. It's 37 episodes. They're like 20 minutes long. But man, if you like uh dense, intense, fucking type of complex story, elaborate schemes, you know, a little bit of fantasy, and detective dramas. This series is for you. From the first episode, I was interested in the series. I mean, I just wanted to continue watching it and watching it. I would more or less watch an episode a night. But from the first episode, you see that this is the story of Light Yagami, and Light Yagami is this kid who's really intelligent, really smart. He's like the best in his city or his state or something like that. But he finds a death note, right? And you might say, well, if you've never watched Death Note, what is a death note? A death note is basically a notebook which kills people by writing their names in this notebook. So you write the name of a person you want dead, you imagine that person in your head, and that person dies, right? So it's pretty simple explanation for the death note. There are a couple other rules, and as the series goes on, they explain more rules. But that's basically the gist of it. The series starts with this idea, and Light Yagami, he starts to basically experiment with the notebook, right, by like killing bad people. His father is a detective. His father is a police officer, so he wants to kill all of the bad guys, right, in the world. He wants to kill all of the criminals. He starts literally killing all the criminals one by one. um, and you would think, well, yeah, I mean, it's his decision to kill all of the bad people is controversial, right? Because you're basically saying, well, you're a killer now. You know, you're if you want to rid the world of all of the bad things in it, you're doing a bad thing, right, by killing these people. Because you don't really know why they're bad. I mean, they're bad. They're criminals, rapists, killers, whatever. But yeah, so he knows this, and he basically says, "I will sacrifice myself, my soul. You know, I'll rot in hell or whatever, but I'm gonna be like the new god of this new world that I'm going to create." So his plan is basically that, and the story gets interesting when we have a detective who I guess is the counterpart of Light Yagami. His name is L, and L is a detective who is also very intelligent. He's not known to people, so he hides in the shadows, right? He talks to people through a screen, and he distorts his voice. But he's really good at catching bad guys too. Um, so he starts working with the police because the police want to figure out who the fuck is Killa. I mean Kira. They name him Kira, right? Which is, I guess, like a way of saying killer in English. But Kira is basically the person who everybody starts to think about when the bad guys start dying, right? The police eventually see a pattern, and they see that all these bad guys are dying, right, from heart attacks. Um, and then they basically come to the conclusion that somebody is doing it, right? They don't know how they're doing it. So the Death Note has what you would call like supernatural powers, right? It's a supernatural object, and with it comes along a Shinigami. A Shinigami is a god of death. His name is Ryuk. Funny guy. I think he's like one of my favorite characters besides maybe Matsuda, who works with the police too. But Ryuk basically is there to have fun, right? Ryuk, the Shinigami, is the one who starts all of this because he drops the notebook, the Death Note, in the world. I mean, in the living world, right? Because he lives in the death world, because he's a Shinigami or a god of death. And that's when Light Yagami, this kid, picks up the notebook, right, and starts killing people and starts planning to get rid of all the criminals in the world. Um, L, on the other hand, the detective that starts working with the police, starts to see patterns. That's basically where the story really takes off, because L is trying to catch uh, Kira or Light Yagami, and Light Yagami is trying to hide from getting caught, or avoid getting caught, right? But he's also trying to still keep killing people, and that's where it gets interesting. So eventually they cross paths, right? And Light Yagami and L start working together, because L eventually, being intelligent and basically deducing, figures out that it has to be somebody in the family of one of the police officers, or somebody related to the police, because of all the information that this guy is getting to kill all the bad guys, right? Kira. So he gets wind of of Light Yagami, and he starts, basically investigating him. He suspects of him. He tells him straight up, right? There's a lot of good scenes like that where, like, there's this other chick that gets into the mix, whose name is Misa, and she kind of fucks it up for Light, but she loves Light because Light, or Kira, was the person who killed the criminals, or the bad guys that killed her parents or something like that. So there's a lot of people that like Kira, and agree with what he's doing, and there are a lot of people that don't. And then, well, yeah, basically the story. I believe there are 37 episodes. I believe around episode 25. Spoiler alert: L dies. Right? Mm, he loses. Right? But I think it was also because he gave up way before he dies, way before Light Yagami or Kira kills him. L gives up. Right? The detective. He gives up because he can't catch him, right? He can't catch Kira. He can't get to Light, and basically, yeah, he ends up losing to Light, and Light outsmarts him. Light ends up killing him, and then, like, I would say, the last third of the series of the show, like the last 11, 12 episodes, is basically the descendants, or the friends from L, who, because L grew up in this orphanage, whose name is their name are M and N, right? Mello and Ear. They end up stepping in 5 years after the events take place between Light and L. They step in, and then Near basically vows to catch Kira, right? He eventually ends up targeting um, Light Yagami. The thing about Light is that he keeps working with the police. He eventually becomes a police chief. His father dies, and they are trying to catch Kira, right? And he becomes the new L. So Near, or the new one of the new guys, knows that's not Light, because they get the alert that the real L has died, right? But only they know. Everybody else thinks that L is still out there trying to catch Kira, right? And then at the end, basically, Nier wins. He outsmarts Light. But I think Light also got sloppy. I mean, there's a bunch of things that happen. It's kind of accidental how Nier wins. I mean, he uses what happens accidentally because there's something that happens accidentally at the end, and he ends up beating Light. Light basically stupidly confesses in front of everybody, and then at the end, well, he's basically going to go to jail. So his Shinigami, who was along for the ride throughout this whole thing, he basically just says, "Yeah, I'm going to kill you," because that's what the deal is between the Shinigami. The Shinigami is the god of death who gives the notebook or the death note to a human. And the deal is that the human can make use of the death note for as long as they want, but at the end, the Shinigami is going to write, because the Shinigami has, I guess, their own notebook. They're going to end up writing the name of that human in their notebook, right? And they're going to end up killing that human. So he ends up killing Light. Um, and that's how the series ends. I mean, I loved it. I mean, I think this one friend once told me it was a show about moral dilemmas, right? Like good and bad. You could think of it that way. I mean, but I also think that what Light is doing is not correct. I honestly think dealing with a Shinigami is not good business because they're gonna. I mean, you're dealing with the god of death, and at the end of the day, they don't care. I mean, we see two Shinigamis that do care about humans, but yeah, most of them they don't give a fuck. So, for example, Ryuk doesn't give a fuck about anything. He's just there. He tells Light from the beginning. I mean, they're honest. They don't try to fool you or trick you. They say, "This is the Death Note. This is the deal, and do whatever the fuck you want to do." Then there's a manga, I think, also that talks about another character. I don't remember his name, but he basically gets the notebook, the Death Note, from Ryuk years later after the events of the first events with Light, Mello, and Nier. And this guy, he doesn't want to kill people. He tries to sell the Death Note, right? And he ends up selling it to like Donald Trump or something like that. And after that, the Shinigami basically wants to, I mean, he wants to kill somebody, right? Because nobody dies, I guess, in this one. So at the end, the guy that sells the Death Note, thinking that he outsmarted the Shinigamis and got money for it, ends up dying. And I mean, that's kind of like the moral of the story. The moral of the story is that no matter what fucking mess you make or try to get money or outsmart or do nothing with it, do whatever you want with the Death Note, you're gonna end up dying at the end, right? Because the Shinigami is gonna kill you. So I would probably say don't deal with the Shinigami. And if you have no choice, then do what Light did, I guess. Try to kill all the bad guys in the world, but do it. Don't do it from police headquarters, because they're all gonna like, dude, you're fucking working with police. I mean, I think that's one of the stupidest things that Light could have done. After he kills L, he continues to work with the police, supposedly trying to catch Kira. He should have found like a scapegoat or somebody to take the blame, and maybe pretend that they caught Kira, and he could have just kept killing people. Or he could have made it look like Kira was this, like, supernatural being that, kind of like a god or something. I mean, he could have done many other things. He just kept working with the police. He let his guard down. So 5 years later, when Mello and Nier show up, and they start trying to get to Light, I mean, they eventually win. Mello dies, so I mean, you could say that it cost literally from the three good guys, or the three guys that are, I mean, we can't say they're really good. They're just trying to catch Kira. But from those guys, two of them die. Two of them, basically they have to die in order for the last one to catch Kira, right? Or Light Yagami. So yeah, I would have done something different. something, I would have I mean, shit could bounce back after, some time. You got to be, and especially if you're doing something like that. I mean, if you're trying to get rid of all the bad guys in the world, I mean, that's a big task. That's gonna make a lot of changes. It's gonna make a lot of people mad. That's gonna, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if like after that you would have like the mafia trying to catch him or trying to kill him, or, I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen, after he kills Light. And I mean, in the process of just him trying to conquer the world and trying to get rid of all the bad guys. um, the series is very, I really liked it. There's a lot of funny moments, a lot of funny moments that made me laugh, especially when we learn towards the end of this guy who thinks a lot like Kira. But see, a lot of people think like Kira, but they're impulsive, they're reckless, right? And Kira, or Light Yagami, supposedly is like, he has that idea, but he's like cautious about it. I mean, at the end he goes fucking crazy. I never thought he would go crazy because he was always so composed. He was always like relaxed. He was always, I mean, he would think a lot, but he was always like chilled, relaxed. So at the end, he just fucking loses it and starts laughing and he goes crazy. They shoot him and he just fucking runs out of the warehouse where they're at and running through the street. And, he ends up dying in this like Freddy Krueger type of looking thing. uh, he sees Al at the end. There's a theory also I read somewhere that L actually never died. There's this whole explanation online about how L is actually L actually planned or staged his death, like he faked it in order to like stay in the shadows. And at the end, the person that L sees, I mean, the person that Light Yagami sees is actually L, not L like in heaven or in hell or in the afterlife, but like him physically there because he's still alive. I thought that was an interesting. I mean, it goes on to explain how in episode 25, when he's outside of the police headquarters or where they're at, he's like just, he's in the middle of the rain and in the top of the building, and they say that he was actually coming back in a helicopter from Misa's house, where he took a piece of her death note so he could see. There's a lot of other things that happen like that. Like there's other death notes, other shinigamis and stuff. But yeah, there's this whole theory about how he actually was alive, and he planned for MNN to basically get to Kira eventually. So I would really recommend this series if you haven't watched it. It's a good watch. A lot of funny moments, like I said. There's this guy that at the end he comes in towards the end. I think his name is Mikami, I believe. And yeah, he's just fucking obsessed with Kira, right? He calls him God. There's this part where they need to basically speak in code. So Light Yagami says something like 5 pages, November 26th, which I believe was the date that he got certain material with instructions to do certain things for Light Yagami, for Kira. And he just fucking goes crazy. He's like, "You're God." Right. And that guy, he always refers to Light Yagami as God. Like, but like seriously, he's like, "No, God, I didn't mean to do this, God." I thought that was fucking hilarious. Ryuk also, he's one of my favorite characters or he's probably my favorite character. He loves apples. He's just kicking back, watching how it all unfolds. And I really like Matsuda because he's ballsy. I mean, there's around halfway through the series, it kind of gets slow. They don't really, nothing really happens. They're like waiting for, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're just like, nothing really happens in those episodes. Um, and there's this like company that's like killing people now, but for their benefit. They're trying to get money. They're trying to basically literally kill the competition, wipe out the competition. And Matsuda, what he does is he fucking, he does some practical work. He goes out there and he gets he works the case, right? When everybody else isn't doing shit. I also watched this video talks about how Matsuda is basically like very inquisitive. He's the one that shoots Light at the end, Light Yagami or Kira. And they say that as he's shooting him, he's asking these questions, right? Like he's crying because that's who he thought was his colleague, his fellow police officer, friend. And yeah, like he's shooting him because Light is trying to do something stupid. And yeah, as he's shooting him, he's crying, he's saying, why, your father's death was for nothing, all this shit. And yeah, like he's a different type of breed, right, Matsuda. So yeah, that's all I got for today. That's all I got to say about Death Note. Great fucking series, highly recommended. Awesome. I mean, I can see why it's in 2023. This series came out in 2006, like 15 years ago, so 20 almost years ago. So yeah, I can definitely see why it's still out there. Check it out if you get the chance, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.